Green Lantern Earth 1 tells the story of a Green Lantern from a different universe, a different origin for Hal Jordan in the world where Batman just started and Superman just started, the Earth 1 universe. This storyline came out about 2 or 3 years ago, and I've actually fallen in love with it. I just never got around to covering it here on the channel. And if you're wondering what channel this is Comicstorian. I take trade paperbacks, we cut out a lot of the fluff, we cut them down to a synopsis, and then we give it to you as an audio drama. I act out the characters, but you know what to add to your collection at your local comic book store. Today I wanted to dive into Green Lantern Earth 1 because, at least at the time of recording this, I feel like this is the storyline they're going to use for the Green Lantern DCU movie. But there's not much more to tell you other than this takes place on Earth 1. Let's get into it. The Ferris 6 floats through the black, near the unclaimed asteroid of 895. The mining operation continues, searching for precious metals that could be used back on Earth. But the comms unit gets a relay. It's Ferris herself, letting Captain Seaton know that the Pinda has already struck a 17-ton load on 644. The miners on the asteroid groan in disappointment, knowing that they won't be getting a finder's bonus on this trip and that they have to head back to Earth. But Hal Jordan refuses. "I'm not going back there. I'm done with Earth," he says. Volkov looks at Hal in shock, not even sure if that's possible. "How long's it been, Jordan, since you were even on Earth?" Volkov asks after the two miners switch to a personal channel. Hal tells him that it's been 8 years since he left Earth, just after the end of NASA. Volkov is shocked that Jordan worked for NASA, believing that the old space agency had a very noble agenda. "I'm sure that's how it looked from the outside," Jordan says, with a sigh as he loads another sensor charge into his tool. Still looking for minerals, he places it on the ground and fires, but the device comes back with an error. He looks down in surprise as he sees a strange object beneath his feet. Reaching down, he begins to clear away the rocks. "Volkov, come on over here." Volkov jumps over the ridge, and the two of them look in shock at the spacecraft that Hal has begun to uncover. He cracks the hatch to the craft and slips inside, ignoring Volkov's protests that they should just call this in. Inside the spacecraft, they shine their lights, jumping back as the light reveals a strange robot creature in the shadows. "Incredible," Jordan whispers. "Judging by the layer of dust in this thing, I'd say that we're safe." They keep pushing through the ship, their lights showing nothing but debris. But a strange green glow attracts their attention. They move forward, shifting the fallen paneling away, revealing a glowing green lantern. The energy source for the ship? The crash had to be, 100 years old? More? They turn again and are shocked to see a purple-skinned humanoid on the ground, a piece of metal piercing his chest. "Jordan, that dead guy, that's an alien," Volkov gasps as the pair investigate. He leans forward, noticing a ring on the dead alien's hand, and suddenly the whole ship begins to shift. Jordan hits his comms, letting Captain Seaton know what they found. They begin to report in, and Seaton is confused, and the whole ship shifts again, beginning to fall off the cliff. Jordan turns back, ordering Volkov to get out of the ship. The pair manage to climb free and leap from the crash as it tumbles off the side, smashing into the ground below. Seaton is calling over the comms, "Jordan! Volkov! Are you okay?" And Hal nods his head. "We're good, mostly. I'll explain on the way back, Captain." Sometime later, the pair's shuttle is heading back to Ferris 6, and Seaton has ordered them to prepare their statements for when they return to Earth. Behind them, Volkov has taken the ring out of his bag, the battery beginning to glow and float in the air. Volkov can't help himself, placing the ring against it, and it begins to glow, and a blast of energy rips out of the ring, tearing a hole in the side of the shuttle. The air suddenly begins to get sucked out into space, and Hal tries to grab a hold of Volkov, but the ring slips off of his finger. Aboard the Ferris 6, the crew is shocked by what they see. Volkov's body floating by them, slamming into the viewport. The rest of the lander suddenly explodes, revealing Hal wrapped in green energy. Below them on the asteroid, the robot awakens, its eyes glowing red. Everyone begins to realize that Hal Jordan is alive out in free-floating space. They try to hit him on the comms, but realize that his radio must have been destroyed. Outside, Hal Jordan is as surprised as everyone else. "Okay, I can breathe. That's good," he says to himself, aiming towards the Ferris 6. "I just need to get far enough away from this mess that they can pick me up. Chin up, Jordan. You can do this," he says, pushing off of the wreckage of the shuttle, floating through space towards the Ferris 6. He manages to get close to the ship and motions through the viewports for them to let him in. The rest of the crew rushes to the airlocks, but Captain Seaton orders them to stop, knowing that Jordan can't hear them, she holds up a datapad with a message on it. Risk too great. Can't expose crew to radiation. Our thoughts are with you. Jordan reads it, lowering his head. Of course. I understand. With that, he pushes away from the ship, and the rest of the crew are upset that they have to watch him die. But something else comes out of the asteroid. Hal turns at the last minute as that robot from before flies through space, slamming into him hard, knocking him away. Hal realizes that his friend blew up their whole ship with the ring. So he holds it up trying to blast the robot, but it slams into him again, bringing him down to the asteroid. Hal manages to kick free, and it floats away, and he turns, aiming the ring again. Come on! He shouts, firing a blast from it. The robot manages to dodge the attack, and the onslaught continues. But Hal, unknown to himself, is gathering the strange energy around him. He leaps up into the air, slamming into the robot, driving it away. Back on the ship, the crew is watching in stunned silence. Everyone else saw that, right? Hal continues to fly the robot away, gathering the energy again, firing a blast into its chest, destroying it in a blinding flash of green light. But he's used too much energy. The light from the ring begins to fade as Hal and the remains of the robot float through the darkness of space. He falls into the ether, and the darkness takes him. He awakens suddenly, shocked by his surroundings in some sort of lab. Captain Seaton? He asks, choking on a device that's crammed down his throat. He looks up and a strange insect slams into the glass cage nearby. Hal struggles up, pulling the tube out of his throat, spitting it to the ground. More of the creatures begin to slam against their glass prisons, and Hal stumbles for the exit. He steps outside into the alien world. He shields his eyes from the light as he stares around a world that he doesn't recognize. Alien insects the size of dogs flying nearby. Someone lands on the ground next to him. It's all right. I'm Kilowog F. We're on the same team. I'm a lantern too. The big alien tells him, holding up his four-fingered hand so that Hal can see the ring. He reaches out and puts an arm around Jordan, leading him back inside. Come, you shouldn't be out of bed. Cosmic ray burns are a nasty business. He puts Hal back at his bed, checking his wounds, telling him that he is lucky that the skin grafts have taken hold. Where am I? Hal asks, and Kilowog explains that he is on Bolavox Vic, an independent world that the Manhunters haven't touched yet. And after a bit of explaining, Kilowog looks at his new friend. Please, don't be offended, but what breed of alien are you? He asks. Hal gets to his feet, explaining that he is a human from Earth, and he seems to be far from his home. I have one more very important question. The ring was passed down to me from the death of my predecessor. I have very little to go on. Would you teach me? Would you teach me to be a true Green Lantern? Kilowog asks, hope in his eyes. But Hal explains that he doesn't know anything about the lanterns, that he found the ring and used it on instinct alone. Kilowog waves off that notion with surprise. Impossible! No one but a powerful and skilled lantern could have done what you did. You killed a Manhunter! Kilowog tells him. He leads him to a different part of the lab, showing the destroyed remains of the robot that Hal defeated. He finally explains everything to Hal, how the lanterns were once a peace-loving force throughout the galaxy, led by the Guardians of Oa. But the Manhunters rose up and wiped out the Green Lanterns, and then took control of the universe. Some say the Owens created the Manhunters too. I don't know for sure. There are many stories, Kilowog tells him. And finally, Kilowog tells him that he must go for the safety of his planet. So he offers Hal his battery, allowing him to recharge the ring. Is there a right way to do this? Hal asks as the battery begins to glow, and Kilowog looks at him with surprise. What? It's not magic. Just hold the ring to the battery until it's charged. Hal suddenly steps back. He knows that the ring is a tool and isn't magic, which means that he needs to learn how to use it. So before I go anywhere, I need you to teach me what you know. Kilowog nods, thus beginning a training montage. Hal learns to concentrate and control the energy, allowing him to fly, and he only almost dies from falling out of the sky once or twice. He learns to channel the energy into blasts that are powerful enough to rip holes in the mountains, and this also gets the attention of the planet's home guard. That night, Kilowog and Jordan share a final meal together before Hal leaves for Earth. But before he goes, Kilowog offers him his battery. You should take the lantern. Hal looks at him in surprise. I can't do that. Your ring would be useless. You wouldn't be able to defend. But the conversation is interrupted as the home guard appears. The general stalks forward, ordering Hal and Kilowog to stand down. Step aside. We are here for the alien. The general orders, but Kilowog refuses, reminding the general that he never agreed to the rules of not using his ring. He steps in front of Hal, holding up his ring as the green energy begins to glow around them. "You're not taking him!" he growls, but they all turn as a massive explosion rips apart the hill in the distance. "Your lab," Hal whispers, and one of the soldiers turns his binoculars on the lab, watching as an army of manhunters are now ripping it apart. A blast suddenly coming out of the sky, tearing into the general, dropping him. "Incoming!" Hal shouts as the manhunters descend from the sky. In the lab, the manhunters tear through the wall to find their dismantled comrade. One reaches out, pulling out its memory unit, plugging it into its arm. "Soul system," it says to its brethren. In the distance, Kilowog and Jordan have entered the combat with the manhunters. The soldiers on the ground are quickly killed. A blast hitting at Hal Jordan, knocking him to the ground. He looks up as the manhunters prepare to execute Kilowog. "Oh hell," he whispers, but he gathers the energy around himself, rushing forward, grabbing Kilowog and flying them both into space. The manhunters, they follow, firing their blasters at them. "Go faster, damn it!" Hal shouts to his ring, and they suddenly go blinding fast, ripping through space. Moments later, arriving at a destroyed planet as they slam into it. Hal staggers to his feet, looking over at Kilowog, the alien raising his ring as Hal approaches. Whoa, 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 it's me! Kilowog struggles to his feet, looking around them. "No, I have to get back. How could you do this?" Hal tries to talk him out of it, believing that they can't take the manhunters on themselves. "These rings are too weak. The one I killed was old. It was a rusted out shell. If we're going to fight them, have any hope, we're going to need help." But Kilowog doesn't listen, flying back up into the air. Hal tries to follow, but Kilowog has already disappeared into deep space, and Hal doesn't know how to get back to Bolivax. He stares down at his ring in frustration. "I know there's more to this ring. I can feel it." He looks around at the destroyed world and sees the ruins of a civilization. Floating forward, he discovers a monument to a fallen Green Lantern. "Penelopes," Kilowog says from behind him, and Hal turns in shock. "Penelopes was a Green Lantern of this sector. This was his world. You were right, I can't do this alone," Kilowog says with defeat. So the two decide that they're going to search the galaxy for other lanterns. Those that have found the fallen rings and are willing to use them for good. Thus begins another montage. Hal and Kilowog travel the galaxy, following every lead that they can, journeying to every populated world, avoiding the ever-present manhunters that control everything. They finally arrive on a planet with vast trees that reach up into the sky, and floating inside, they are shocked to see the world is biomechanical in nature. As they begin to explore this world, two massive green fists come out of the darkness, slamming them into the wall. "Who are you? Answer me!" Orissa demands, her light flooding the dark caverns around them. "We need your help!" Kilowog shouts, and Hal quickly explains the situation to her, asking for her help against the manhunters. She refuses, ordering them to never return to her world. Sometime later, Kilowog and Hal go to Moab Gira in the Opa system. There they find an old woman who recognizes their rings and invites them in. "We were told," Hal begins, but she waves her hand to stop him. Yes, but I'm afraid the information that you were given is regrettably out of date. You see, I am Vecca Trena. It's my partner that you're looking for. Unfortunately, you're 20 cycles too late," she says, and Hal sighs, taking a seat, telling the woman that they are looking for any who have come into possession of the ring. "Since the manhunters have risen up and destroyed the Green Lantern Corps, we're trying to restart them." She looks at them for a moment. "I'm sorry, but what exactly do you think happened to the Lantern Corps?" Hal looks at Kilowog, who tries to explain, but Vecca Trena stops him. "Perhaps I should clear this up for you, because I wasn't told these things. I experienced them." She tells them that the Owens created the Corps and the rings, but they decided that the Corps had become too unruly to control. The Manhunters were created to destroy the Green Lantern Corps, and that's exactly what they did. The pair are shocked, asking if the Guardians still control the Manhunters. I have no reason to think otherwise. They sent the Manhunters to kill every Corps member that they could find. Some escaped, and some were pursued to the ends of the galaxy before they were tracked down and destroyed. She tells them that since the central battery was destroyed, the rings they have are too weak to defeat the Manhunters. They're just faint echoes of the past. You won't be able to defeat the Manhunters, no matter how many of you gather. She then apologizes to them for wasting their time, and Hal and Kilowog thank her, flying away. Vecca watches them leave before turning once more to her simple home. She reaches into a chest, pulling out a simple box. and she opens it to reveal a glowing ring. Later, the pair are sitting at an old space station drinking a bottle of whiskey as their rings slowly recharge. Hal takes a long swig and apologizes to his friend for taking him away from his home on some wild mission. But Kilowog's words suddenly don't make any sense, and Hal looks at him in surprise. "Oh, both our rings are dead. No one to translate," he says with a sigh, and he gets up, beginning to walk away, but looks in surprise as a bunch of aliens run past him in fear. He turns in shock to see the Manhunters have arrived. "Kilowog, we have to!" He begins to shout, turning back to his friend, but a Manhunter is there, punching Hal in the face, knocking him out. He finally awakens as a large hatch is opened, light flooding into the hold of the ship, and he's forced out into a crowd of aliens. Oh, hell. Where is this place? He begins to wonder, but he can't understand anyone as his ring is gone. The slaves are ushered below the surface, where Hal has been given a pickaxe and sent to work in the mines. Some time passes. Hal sees the horrors of the Manhunters. He watches as the aliens are worked to death, as their living conditions and food kill them off. He watches in shock as a Manhunter executes a group of slaves. In shock, he drops his axe, but it is retrieved by an alien woman. "Thank you," he whispers to her, but he can't understand her reply. One day he's with a group as they are moving along the surface, and they pass a nearby strange dome. His ring then begins to glow, when suddenly he can understand the aliens around him. "What the hell? What could have charged?" he whispers to himself, but the next day he's continuing his work when a massive alien shoulders him aside. "You stole my spot, pale stick man!" Hal whirls on him. "This isn't your spot and you know it!" Everyone is shocked, having never heard the human speak before. The big alien roars, preparing to fight Hal, but Hal blasts him with the energy from the ring, and the alien falls to the ground with the hole in his chest. "Damn it!" he hisses. And the Manhunters arrive in minutes, getting the crowd under control and hunting for Hal. He finds himself saved by the same alien woman from before as she helps him hide as the Manhunters continue to look for him. "If we can get to the surface, there's a building. That's where it charged," he tells her, warning her that the ring won't help them now. "Come," she says with a quick nod, and the pair make their way to the surface, but they must wait for night as acid rain falls from the sky. They say it was once brilliant. Before, when the lanterns still ran things, the rain didn't burn flesh, the woman says, and Hal stares at the dismal planet. "Then this is Oa," he asks her, and she nods, asking him that when they charge his ring, if they can escape together. But Hal believes that they should try to save some of the slaves if they can, but she shakes her head. "I don't care about them, and neither do you. Why should you? When we leave this place, we'll never come back. Let us find our own way off," she snaps at him, and Hal is taken aback by her words. "You know I'm right," she whispers before they go to bed. Hal awakens the next morning to find the woman and his ring gone. "I should have known," he whispers, rushing out, heading towards the dome, finding the woman desperately trying to charge it. He rushes over to her, trying to talk her into giving him the ring back, but she whirls around, firing an uncontrolled blast at him. The Manhunters are alerted, and the robots arrive, blasting the woman, killing her instantly. Hal rushes forward, pulling the ring from her finger, slipping it onto his own, feeling the small amount of power. "Second life form located. Detain!" The Manhunters cry out as they open fire. Hal turns, beginning to run. The ring doesn't have enough power to let him fly, so he stops, turning to see the dome. Using the last of his energy, he blasts a hole in the side of it, which allows him to climb through. "Oh, my God!" he whispers as he looks up, the chamber now bathed in green light as he looks up at a massive central battery. "Here goes," he begins as he holds out his hand, a charge of energy flying from the battery beginning to fill his ring. He's almost blinded by the brightness of the light, but there is a bright flash and he is suddenly within a green chamber. "Who are you?" the voice calls out, and Hal turns to see a short blue man standing before him. I'm Harold Jordan." The Guardian nods, telling Hal that he has something important for him to do. "You're a Guardian?" Hal asks, interrupting the alien, and the Guardian nods, explaining that he was the scientist that created the central battery. Once the Manhunters were created, they began to wipe out the other Guardians. He managed to escape into another dimension, but the Manhunters are unable to replicate, which is why they require slaves. When they turned on us, when they murdered my peers, they killed their own future. He looks at Hal and tells him that he must destroy the dome and bring as many lanterns as possible to Oa. "Once you are masked, you must turn your rings towards the battery. The feedback loop will destroy Oa and the Manhunters with it," he explains, and Hal is shocked, knowing that will kill all the slaves as well. What are those lives in the face of peace for the galaxy? Don't fail me, the Guardian says before the room fades. Hal finds himself in the dome once more, and the Manhunters have arrived. But Hal is fully powered up. He fires a blast that destroys one of the robots, and then he blasts his way out of the dome with the Manhunters still attacking him. Even with his extra power, he is overwhelmed and forced to fly from the planet. Damn it! There's just no way! He shouts to himself as he gets to a safe distance in space. He thinks back on his life, on the times that he has run away and only thought of himself. A look of determination fills his eyes and he looks down on the ring. Ring, can you send out a distress call? The ring brightens and finally responds. Omnidirectional distress signal prepared. Hal is shocked. Oh, finally. All right, ring, send this message. He sends out a message to the rest of the Lanterns in the galaxy, asking for their help in saving Oa, the central battery, and the slaves beneath the surface. The message is received by those that he has met before. Hal doesn't know this, but it doesn't matter. He returns to Oa using his power to slam into the Manhunters and hit them hard. He shields himself from their blasts, but their attacks knock him to the surface. He's about to fall when a second shield saves him, and he looks up as Kilowog stands there. Just needed your location, buddy, the big alien says with a smile. Hal thanks his friend and tells him to get to the battery to fully charge. He tries to cover him as Kilowog blasts another hole in the dome. Maybe I can, Hal suddenly thinks, and his energy blasts take the form of a physical construct. But another Manhunter flies out, slamming into Kilowog, knocking him to a bloody pulp on the ground. More Manhunters arrive, hitting Hal and knocking him to the ground once more. He struggles back to his feet, looking up as the Manhunters are slammed with green energy. I can't believe, he whispers, as he sees a large group of ring slingers arriving, using what energy they have to attack the robots. Everyone, focus on the dome! The Lanterns do as they're told, blasting the dome, destroying it, allowing the central battery to fully charge them all. But even so, the Manhunters outnumber them. There's too many of them! Somebody make a shield! Orissa shouts, and Vecca nods her head. I'm on it. With that, she forms a powerful shield on the Lanterns. Hal tells them that the plan is to create a feedback loop with the battery, thus destroying the Manhunters. But he doesn't want to kill everyone on the planet as well. That's when a blue alien floats forward. I'm a physicist, and I don't think we need a loop that big. If you use the rings to create a smaller loop, it should wipe out the Manhunters on the surface. Right, how do we do it? Hal asks. The Lanterns do as they're told and they create a smaller feedback loop, spreading the green energy over the surface of the planet, wiping out the Manhunters. Afterwards, Hal looks up in shock to see that Kilowog has survived. Ring works a hell of a lot better now, Kilowog says with a triumphant yell. But the battle isn't finished. The Lanterns head below the surface, fighting against the remaining Manhunters and wiping them out. Vecca is hit in the back during the battle and falls to the ground. Hal rushes to her side. We're all here because somebody stood up. Pass the spring on, and please help. She gasps as she hands Hal her ring with her dying breath. He promises her and returns to the battle, the Lanterns creating massive bubbles around the slaves to fly them to safety. They arrive at Paraqua, an uninhabited moon of the Petch system. There, Hal offers Vecca's ring to one of the former slaves. How do we know that she's worthy? Kilowog asks, and Hal shakes his head. I don't. We're all just doing the best that we can, and I bet she will too. As the Lanterns gather, they begin to believe that they must now put a stop to the Manhunters once and for all, take back their planet, and protect the galaxy. It is believed that someone should be in charge. I agree. I nominate Orissa. Kilowog nods and seconds the nomination, believing that the warrior is the natural to lead them. She has her doubts, but she does accept. And so, the Lanterns spread throughout the galaxy, with Hal returning once more to Earth to retrieve the battery that was lost to him at the beginning of the adventure. Meanwhile, in another dimension, one remaining Guardian looks out of the central battery. If only he'd done as I asked, the Guardian says with a sigh, believing that having both the Manhunters and the remaining Lanterns wiped out would have solved all of their problems. But he steps through the door to another chamber, a chamber bathed in yellow light from a yellow central battery. No matter, I designed those rings many years ago, and this time I did a much better job, he says as he looks down at his yellow lantern core. With his battery retrieved, Hal Jordan returns to Earth, where he meets with Captain Sean, who's shocked to see him. You picked a hell of a time to come back. Our whole team is grounded. They actually threatened to arrest me. Not surprised. Looks like we have a lot of work to do here at home. Now, we have the tools to help. He tells her, revealing the ring and the Green Lantern symbol on his chest. Now, based on the artwork that they used in the DCU promo image, I think we're going to get a version of this story. Something that won't require a ton of budget to do these space adventures, but you also kind of get the police force and a rebirthed version of the Green Lanterns. But what do you guys think? I really enjoy this Earth 1 storyline, and if you do like it, give this video a like, and we'll come back with part 2 in I don't know, about a week or two, probably about 2 or 3 weeks, honestly. But we'll come back with the second part of this. This is the full story of Earth 1, but they did come out with another book in this timeline. And if you want early access to our products, make sure that you go over to our Patreon or YouTube memberships and sign up. Thank you guys for your support, and I'll see you next time right here.